Alright guys, now let's get started with the second part, the dashboard. Alright, now the dashboard is pretty much the most important part when it comes to presentation. This is where you're going to be adding up it all together. Pivot tables, charts, slicers, and all of your design skills. Alright, now dashboards are really simple to produce. And the value that they add, especially in your career and in your office, is incredible. I mean, most bosses, most executives, they are impressed with dashboards in a way that you have no idea. All right, so let's get started. This is what we're going to be angling at. All right, I know it's in Spanish. Ignore the legends, the captions. But pretty much we have a bunch of data right here that's really well presented. We have the charts, tables, and these little items right here that I like to call cards, all right? And this is what we're going to be working with in our file that we left off in the last section, all right? So right here is our dashboard. Let's get started. These are our instructions, and it's asking me to create a dashboard with the following indicators in the next worksheet, which is pretty much the one right here, all right, guys? Now, the first thing that you want to make sure is that the worksheet that you're working with is blank, all right? Now, make sure that it's blank, no grid lines. How would I go about turning off the grid lines? That's really simple. Just go over here where it says View, and then click here where it says Grid Lines, all right? And there we go. We have a blank piece of paper. Now, guys, I see a lot of my classroom students, especially when it's their first day. Whenever I ask them to remove the grid lines, they go ahead and do something different, all right? They select the entire worksheet, and then they go over to Home, and then they select this little paint bucket and paint everything white. Never, ever do that, all right? That is a terrible way to clean up the grid lines. That's the mark of someone that has absolutely no knowledge of Excel. And it's probably going to mess up your worksheet. So never do it that way. Remember, the correct way is to come over here to View and remove the grid lines. All right, so after I told you off for that, let's do something a little bit more, let's do something a little bit more appealing, which is starting with the dashboard. The first thing when working with the dashboard is our title, all right? So we're going to be working with a title, and instead of actually typing the title into a cell in the worksheet, we're going to be using something called a text box. All right, guys? So make sure that you go over here to the Insert tab. Make sure that you go over here to the Insert tab. And then you head over to this box here that says Text Box. All right? Click on it. Let's make it a little bit larger. And notice how I'm going to draw a text box right here. And this is where I'm going to be typing in my title. It's easier that way. All right? So the title is going to be Sales and Returns Analysis for Gym Clothes Store. All right, a little bit long-winded if you want, but that is the title. Now, the title itself looks horrible. It looks hideous. It's just a normal text. How can I make it a little bit more presentable? Well, the secret is in the font, in the text, all right? So in the font, let's select a font that actually makes sense. I'm going to select my entire data. And guys, fonts are really underappreciated. They're really important when you're working with design in Excel, because it's pretty much your biggest tool, your best tool for actually making this work. Remember, Excel is not Photoshop, all right? You don't have effects, you don't have shadows, you don't have images, you don't have much. You have to make it. You have to make your dashboard stand out with the tools that you have, and fonts. Well, they're a pretty big part of that. My favorite font for dashboards is one called Franklin Gothic Demicon. All right, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger, and there we go. All right, so now I have a title, a big title, and I'm going to do something with this title box. All right, make sure that the title box is selected and go over here to a Format tab. Now, this Format tab right here, this is something that that allows me to modify all the properties for the title box. Whenever we're talking about text boxes, I always tell my students to do two things. The shape fill of the box should be no fill, and the outline should be no outline. All right, guys? So there we go. We have our title right here, and we're good to go. Now, guys, let's settle on a color. Let's settle on a color for our title, or for the entire dashboard. Notice how this dashboard right here, everything is orange, all right? Now, one of the rules for creating dashboards and data analysis and stuff is make sure it doesn't look like a clown vomited out. All right, make sure it doesn't look like an invitation to your son's 6-year-old birthday party. Why? It's easier on the eyes if you just use 1 or 2 colors and that's it. All right, guys, no need to include 7 different colors. So in this instance, when we designed the dashboard for the Spanish version, we marry ourselves to the orange color. In this instance, we're going to marry ourselves to blue. All right. So I'm going to select Gym Clothes Store, just the Gym Clothes Store text, and I am going to paint it blue. All right. It's a little bit, it's this shade of blue right here. All right. Blue accent 1. All right, guys, we're going to be using blue for everything else. All right, so now that we covered the colors, we have covered the title. Let's get started with the actual stuff that we need to add into a dashboard. Here's everything that we need. And the first thing that's being asked of us are the cards, all right? Now, cards are these elements right here, all right? These elements right here. There's 2 different types of cards. The first one is the type of card that comes in from shapes, all right? So let's first do something to feed that card, all right? We need to calculate the data that we're being asked for. In this instance, we're being asked for the total sales, just the sales. All right, so all of these numbers that come into the cards, they're coming in from pivot tables. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a pivot table right here in my dashboard worksheet, all right? So select an empty cell, select the cell that you want, click on it, and insert in a pivot table. I'm going to select a pivot table called data, and that's my pivot table. All right, now I'm being asked for the total sales. I need to grab price and drag it down here to values, and that's going to sort of give me a total sales. But that's not the case, because remember, price is mixed in. I mean, we have prices for purchases and prices for returns. So I need to filter this out to make sure that I only bring back the purchases. I'll grab order type, drag it down here to filters, and filter out to only show the purchases. Now, this is the money that actually came into the store from us selling stuff, merchandise to customers. All right, guys? So with that money in there, I'm going to use the data from here. 2 things that I want you to do. The first one is, and this is something that you're going to have to take on faith until I explain it to you later, is I'm going to go over to an empty cell and I'm going to type in equals, and then I'm going to come over here and click on my data, on my 2,340,000. All right, I'll get this formula called get pivot data. I don't care. I press enter, and I'll get the exact same piece of data. All right, guys, I need to do that because later on the cards are going to ask me for that. I'll explain it to that in a little bit. So just hold the questions. Make sure you do that. All right, guys, with that done, then I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to start typing in the title for this. This is going to show me the total sales. So I'm just going to bring in back the title, and this title is going to be for personal effects, all right, for personal purposes only. I don't actually need it right here, but I'm going to be creating something like 5 or 6 different pivot tables, and it's always an issue with my students that they create 6, 7, 10 different pivot tables and they never label them. So they don't remember what each pivot table was supposed to be about. All right, so guys, always label your pivot tables. Your future you is going to thank you later. All right, let's get back to this. I'm being asked for a card that shows the total sales. Right now I created a pivot table that shows the total sales in a very unfashionable manner. All right, so let's get back here to my dashboard and let's add the card that shows the pivot, that's the total sales. So how would I go about doing that? Really simply. Go over here, select insert, and then select shapes. All right, guys, you should have a shapes button in here, and we're going to get a bunch of shapes that I'm going to be using for my different cards. Now, if you're a sober, conservative person, then you can select one of these rectangles over here. All right, and if you're a little bit more liberal, free-spirited, you can choose something else. Now, I have a bunch of my students that they try to be funny and they try to create their dashboard using just happy faces or hearts or thunderbolts. It's not going to work, all right? It never works. Guys, you're in a corporate setting. It's Excel. It's the most boring thing in the world. You use rectangles. If you're really daring, you use a rectangle that has been clipped at the edge, all right? Like what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to grab one of these rectangles that was snipped at one of the corners. All right, guys, paint your rectangle, make sure it's big, make sure it is legible. All right, so there we go, we have a rectangle. Now let's fill it up with data. Select your rectangle, make sure that it's selected, and then with your mouse, head over up here and press equals, all right? Press equals up here, and that's it. Now, this is going to open up the rows for a formula, and in this formula, I'm going to select my mouse, come over here to dashboard, and then press on the piece of information that I pulled out of the pivot table, all right? Not the one that is in the pivot table, but the one that I pulled out of it. It's going to be referencing that, dashboard L13, we're good to go. And then we press enter again. All right, notice how I brought data right here. Guys, this is really important that you understand. The cards, the shapes right here, and the pivot tables, they don't talk to each other, all right? They don't like each other. So I just can't go ahead and reference the piece of data directly. I need this middleman right here that is going to be pulling the data out of the pivot table and into a little card. All right, guys? So now that I have the data right here, what I'm going to be doing is adding formatting to that because it looks really, really, really ugly. All right. The first thing that I'm going to do is go over to my format menu. And what I always tell my students to do when it comes to formatting for cards is to make sure that the shape fill is white. Okay. Something neutral like white. And the shape outline should be either black or the same color that we've been using. All right. The blue accent. All right, so there we have our card. And with that done, we add an effect. Now this effect is really sober. It's really elegant in my opinion. Let's go over here to where it says shape effects, select shadow, and select the first outer shadow that you find. All right, and there we go. We have our card, but it's not complete. We need to make sure that the data is being shown in an agreeable manner. So select your card and make sure that you are in the home tab. All right, make sure that you're in the home tab. Once you're here in the home tab, you go down here into this little menu that I'm moving my mouse over here, and this is going to allow me to align my number. So make sure that it's aligned to the right and in the middle. All right. And now let's add fonts. Franklin Gothic DMyCon, a little bit larger. And finally, let's label it. Let's label it what it is that we're doing here. Well, this one right here is the total sales. So I'm going to go over here and click Insert Text Box. All right. Text box are going to allow us to do titles both in and out of cards. So I'm going to label this one as total sales. I am going to select Franklin Gothic DMyCon, make it a little bit larger. And remember, the formatting for text boxes is always no fill, no outline. All right, guys. There we go. So there we go. We have our total sales, and I think this is pretty presentable for us. Now, guys, that's for our first card. We need a bunch of different cards now. The next one that I'm going to be doing is the total returns. When I'm creating a new card and it has new data, then that new data has to come from a new pivot table. All right, guys? So let's insert a new pivot table and do the entire same process again. Guys, this is a perfect opportunity for you to press pause and go ahead and do it on your own if you want to. All right? Otherwise, follow along with me. Okay, so let's select an empty stretch of space. Let's go over here where it says Insert Pivot Table and select Data. All right. Now, the total returns are going to be the result of adding price and then filtering out the order type right here into returns. All right, guys. There we go. So there we have the returns. Now, I'm going to copy my title down here and I'm going to call it Total Returns. All right. Now, guys, remember, we need to pull our data out of the pivot table in order to make sure that it links correctly to our card. Okay, let's get back to our dashboard. Now, guys, I can start my new card from scratch, my total returns card from scratch. Or, alternatively, I can select this one and copy and paste it right here. All right, guys? Now, don't think that this is a panacea. Why? Because I am going to select my formula and I'm going to modify it and check out what happens. This formula is now going to be pointing out two returns. This one right here that I pulled out. And I lost my entire formatting. All right, I lost the formatting on my text. Don't worry, I have an option right here. I'm going to select my original card. I'm going to click here where it says Format Painter, and then I'm going to select my new card, all right? And there we go. We have the card selected, we're done. Now, let's go over here to where it says Total Sales, and then copy and paste the title, and bring it down here to where it says Total Returns. All right, guys? And there we go. We have our card with the sales, we have our card with the returns, and most importantly, I'm going to be adding something extra down here that you're going to love, which is the returns as a percentage of sales, all right? So I'm going to calculate that outside of here. It's going to be equals to this one divided by this one, and it's going to show me the returns as a percentage of sales, 9.90%, all right? So how would I go about including that within my card? Well, always, whenever you want to add something on top of the card, you use a text box. So let's click text box, let's add this right here, and again, let's go over to a formula bar, press equals, and select the 9.90. All right, double click on it, and I'm going to start typing in return percentage. All right, guys. Now, notice how this happened when I double clicked right here. This is because I have Excel 2016 and also works if you have Excel 2019. If you have Excel 2013 or 2010, no, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. All right, guys. So that's a return percentage. And now let's go over here to formatting and tell it no fill, no outline. All right, there we go. I'm going to add a font right here that actually makes sense. ACGOI UI Light. And there we go. We have our two cards, guys, and they're being fed from the pivot tables. Now, why is it important that the cards get fed from the pivot tables? Well, because when I am using the slicers to add the interactivity, to make it interactive, the pivot tables are going to be changing with the slicers, all right? And that's going to change the numbers. So that's why it's important. All right, guys, the next two cards, they're coming in as very simple cards, because they are not shapes. They're actually stuff that's in the cells, all right? It's actually stuff that's in the cells. Own and affiliate sales. Well, let's get to that. I'm first going to calculate it using my pivot table, and then I am going to go ahead and include it in my dashboard, all right, guys? So, insert a new pivot table right here, comes from data, and include the sales, price down here in values, order type in filters, make sure that it includes purchase. And that shows me the sales. And now let's include own and affiliate. So let's figure out where I can check out if it's own or affiliate. Well, it's in medium, all right? Influencer and own page, that's going to tell me where it's own or affiliate. So guys, own or affiliate, let's see, we have seller right here. No, we don't. Medium, down here to rows, and there we go. All right. So there we have it, guys. Influencers are responsible for about $1 million in sales, and our own page are responsible for $1.2 million in sales. All right, guys. So let's get over here to the dashboard, and let's start working on showing this data. The way I'm going to show data, I don't need to pull it out of the pivot table, all right? This is only applicable if you are going to be using cards built from shapes. But since that's not the case, since that's not the case right here, then it's not going to be applicable. What I'm going to be doing is I am going to select a very large area, say for example a 4 column by 4 row area, and I am going to go over here to home and then to merge and center, all right? Merge and center. Click on it right here. And then I am going to go over into my borders and select thick outside borders, all right, guys? Now, this is going to allow me to use this as a card, all right? Now, I'm going to copy this particular mega cell that I just created and paste it right here, and there we go. We have 2 mega cells. Now, each one of this is going to contain a piece of data. So the first one is going to bring over the data for the influencers, and the second one is going to bring the data for the on page. And now let's just add the formatting. All right, make sure that it's formatted for dollar amounts. I'm going to use Franklin Gothic DMyCont, center it, make it a little bit larger. And this is going to be titled affiliate sales. And this is going to be titled own store sales. All right. Now it's just a matter of adding the formatting. All right. Formatting, I'm going to be using the same blue I've been using so far. And that's it. All right, guys. I think we're good to go. Let me just change the font to make sure that it's something that is more in line with what I've been doing. And there we go. All right. So these are two different kinds of cards. Now, advantages and disadvantages of these cards. Well, this one, in my opinion, I mean, as far as pretty goes, this one is prettier, all right, than this one. This one is more flexible. I can actually move this one however need be, all right? I can actually move it wherever I wanted to. But the problem is these ones are heavy, all right? Guys, you can't really add more than 6 or 7 of these cards within one single dashboard, or you're going to face a ton of trouble, all right? You're going to run into a ton of trouble. Excel might actually close on its own, so you don't want that. This one, on the other hand, they're ugly, and they don't offer much in the way of aesthetics, but they do the job. And they're really easy on the memory and the processor, all right, guys? So you don't need to be adding anything. I mean, you don't need to have like a supercomputer to make this work, all right? And that's it for the cards, all right? That's it for the cards. Now, guys, next up, we're going to be adding our charts, all right? We're going to be adding our charts. The first one we're being asked for is a monthly sales chart. It's something that's going to look something like this, all right? Sales by month, and it's a line chart. Now, it looks more complicated than it is, because the only thing, remember, that we need for the charts is a pivot table, all right? And in order to do that, let's get started. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the title that I forgot to add right here, sales by medium. And then I'm going to add my new pivot table right here. Insert a pivot table that's going to show me the sales by month, all right? So I'm going to grab price, drag it down here to values. I'm going to grab order type, drag it down here to filters, and use purchase. All right, guys? And this is going to show me the total sales, but I want the sales by month. So I also need date, drag it down here to rows, and notice how it's already prearranged to show me the months. So the only thing that I'm left with is add the title to a pivot table. Copy this one, place it here, and use sales by month. All right, guys, there we go. Okay, now that I have the sales by month, guys, remember this pivot table is going to feed into my chart. The chart is going to be really, really, really simple. Just select one simple item within the pivot table, go over here to insert, and I'm going to look for my chart. In this instance, well, it's not me saying this, it's the designer saying this. You're supposed to use line charts when it comes to data that's related to time, all right? So when it comes to time series, the best chart is a line chart. Now, you can dispute that if you want, but that's for another time. So let's use a line chart. This one right here, I'm going to grab my 2D line and I'm going to get this chart that's ugly as whatever swear word you want to think about, right? It's really, really, really ugly. All right, so let's make this a little bit more presentable. Let's go over to design, make sure that the chart is selected, and we go over to the design tab, all right? And I'm going to add this color, all right? Style number 3, I think this one's good enough. All right, I'm going to remove the total from here, change the title to sales by month, and I'm going to right click on any of these ones, right click over here, and I'm going to tell it to hide all field report buttons and chart, all right? Okay, now this chart is a little bit more presentable. I can cut the chart and paste it right here, all right, guys? There we go. So we have our sales and returns analysis for Gym Clothes Store. We have our total sales and total returns, and we have our sales by month. Now, one last chart that I need to add is the chart of sales by acquisition method. Now, again, this one is going to be really simple because it's going to be fed from a pivot table. Again, I'm going to add a new pivot table here, coming from data, and I need to figure out what the acquisition method is, all right? So, if I remember correctly, it was going to be something called platform, all right? Platform is the acquisition method. So I need to create a pivot table that shows me the sales. Again, drag a price to values, order type to filters, and use purchase, say for example right here. This shows me the total sales. And then the method, I'm sorry, where was it? The platform. All right, the platform is the one that I want. Let's grab platform, drag it down here to rows, and here we go. All right, so let's grab sales by month, paste it right here, paste the title down here, and change the title to sales by acquisition method. All right, guys, so there we go. Now, this acquisition method is going to be something really important for you guys to know, all right? This acquisition method is going to be bar chart, but it's going to be a 2D bar chart, which is something that we haven't used so far, all right? So it's this one right here, the clustered bar chart. That's, well, the bars are horizontal. That's the important part, all right? Again, let's go over here to design. Let's add something right here. Say, for example, I like style number 12 right now. And let's title field buttons and chart and call this total sales by platform. All right, we're not done here. It would be easier if this chart, it would be easier to read if this chart was actually strewn out from largest to smallest, all right? Now, the chart itself is not going to be the one that we're going to be arranging. It's going to be the pivot table, all right? So go over to your pivot table, press on any one of these values, then go over to data and order it from largest to smallest, all right? Now, notice that when you order a pivot table from largest to smallest, the chart sorted from smallest to largest, all right? So if it is the chart that you want from largest to smallest, and the pivot table is the one you have to order from A to Z, all right? And there we go. This is a little bit more presentable. Now, I am going to right-click on any one of these bars and click on Add Data Labels. Notice how I get the values right here, and I can get rid of the axis titles down below that I don't need for anything, all right? There we go. Cut the chart, paste it right here, and now we have our total sales by platform. All right, now we have 4 cards, we have 2 charts, and we're almost good to go. But one thing that I want you to notice is it's not interactive yet, all right? It's not interactive yet. So how would I go about doing that? Pretty simple. Just add the slicers. The slicers are going to be the thing that ties it all together, all right? The thing that ties it all together. Now, how would I go about adding those slicers? Well, I would need a slicer for men and women and a slicer by category, all right? Now, before I jump into the slicers, I'm noticing I'm still missing the table of sales by affiliate with mini chart. The top 10 affiliates. All right, guys, so whenever I want to use a table as visual aid within the dashboard, I have 2 options. I can create the table here and copy and paste it into here, or I can just go directly into a dashboard and include my table. My table is going to be a pivot table, as you might have guessed, all right? So I'm going to add it down here below. And I'm going to click on an empty stretch of land and insert a pivot table that's being fed from the data, all right? So there we go, we have our pivot table. It's asking us to include a table of sales by affiliate with mini charts for the top 10. All right, guys? So I'm going to include price and order type right here. And this is going to show me all of the sales by, well, the total sales. Now I need to include them by affiliate. So I need to grab seller, drag it down here to rows, and this is going to show me the sales by affiliate. I need the top 10, guys. I need the top 10. So I'm going to grab my data right here, and I'm going to tell it to use the value filters for the top 10 items by sum of price. All right, there we go. Now we have the top 10 selling affiliates. And a bunch of those are my my own items. So I need to filter those out. All right, guys, I'm going to use my medium field right here in filter, and I'm going to tell it to just use the influencers, all right? Just the influencers. There we go. Now I have the top 10 sellers. Now, guys, check it out. You want to check this out because this next part is really simple and really important. I need the top 10 sellers by month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my date and drag it down here to columns, all right? And this is going to give me my data, all right? This is going to give me my data. Now, let's make this chart more presentable by making it a little bit more compact using the grouping the months by trimester. All right. So I'm going to right click on the month right here. And I'm going to tell it to group, and I'm going to tell it to group by quarter instead of month. All right. And there we go. We have our sales by quarter. And now the table is more presentable. Now, the thing that I actually wanted to do, was add the mini charts right here. All right, add a bunch of mini charts. So how do mini charts work? Well, we covered that much more in depth in the course, but right here, I'm just going to fill you in quickly. I'm going to go over here to insert. I'm going to tell you to insert a column Sparkline, all right, with the data range coming from right here. It includes the first 4 quarters without including grand total. I'm going to press OK, and this shows me the Sparkline. All right. How does this work? Well, it's like a little mini chart that is going to show me, well, pretty much how it's behaved throughout the quarters. All right. So we have a little bit of sales, then sales go up, then sales go down, then sales go up again. All right. That's pretty much it. And again, I can change the design into something that I would actually like to see. All right. Now, last but not least, this pivot table does not match with absolutely anything that I have right here, all right? It's ugly, ugly, ugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the pivot table, I'm going to go over to design and change the design schema to something that actually makes sense. Say, for example, this kind of design, all right? Now, it matches with everything up there. All right, guys, now we're done with the pivot table, and we can head over to the slicers. Now, slicers, last but not least. Definitely not least. How do I add these slicers into my dashboard? Well, it's pretty simple. The first thing that you have to do is go back to a dashboard and go look for your first pivot table that you created, all right? This first pivot table right here is the one that I'm going to be adding, that I'm going to be basing my slicers on. So select any cell of the pivot table and go over here to the Analyze tab. Once you're there in the Analyze tab, you're going to click here where it says Insert Slicer. All right, and it's asking me for 2 slicers, one for men and women and one for slicer by category. So the one for men and women comes from the sex field, and the one for category comes from the category field. That's it. All right, it's self-explanatory. I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to get my 2 slicers down here. Select both, cut them using Ctrl X, and paste them right here. All right, let's drag them up here. All right, so I have my slicer by sex, my slicer by category. Let's make it a little bit larger. All right, guys. Now, those slicers, notice how when I click man, the only thing that changes are my total sales. The returns, the affiliate sales, the charts, the tables, they stay the same, all right? Why is that? Because whenever I insert a slicer, whenever I am actually working with slicers, slicers only affect the pivot table that I inserted them from, all right? And I need to manually let them know that they have to affect everything else. Now, that's easy peasy, all right? Piece of cake, any child can do it. Select your sex slicer, make sure that it's, that sounds really weird. All right, but select your slicer by man and woman, and then go over here to options, and click here where it says report connections. This is where we're going to connect everything, I mean, all the slicers to all of my pivot tables. Click right here, make it a little bit larger, and then start ticking off boxes, all right? This is going to connect it to pretty much every single pivot table in the file. Make sure you just connect it to the pivot tables in the dashboard sheets, all right? Guys, press OK, and now this slicer is going to affect pretty much everything, all right? Notice how everything changes whenever we click on the slicer. You're going to do the exact same thing for the category part, all right? So, category part right here, let's click on the slicer, let's go over to options, and let's go over to report connections. Now, once you're here in report connections, again, check every box for every pivot table in your dashboard worksheets, all right? Press OK, and now everything is being affected for by the slicer for category. All right, guys? Now, let's make the slicers presentable. There's not that much that you can do for slicers. I mean, Excel doesn't have like really cool formatting for slicers. The best that you can aspire to is clicking right here, going over to where it says light blue slicer dark, and that's it. All right. Now it looks like the rest of the dashboard. And guys, check it out. Right now, I'm looking at the sales and returns and everything else just for the sports bras for women. Well, yeah, I mean, there's only sports bras for women. And how the sales took place, whether they were affiliate or own store sales, how it happened by month, by quarter, whatever. All right, guys, whatever, you can actually get it to work. All right, guys, so that's it. That's it. And we have our dashboard set up right now. Do you want to be an Excel god? Our online course will turn you into an Excel master in only 90 days. Excel is the most important tool in the office, but almost nobody knows how to use it. Most people dive right into Excel with no formal training and never use the right tools. And thus, they end up delivering messy reports that are full of mistakes, and they end up hating their jobs. In reality, Excel is really simple to use and can do your job for you, if you know how to use it. But you have to pick the right place to learn from, or you'll only end up more confused with all of the different tools and functions that Excel has to offer you. So, what can you do? Our Excel course is tailor-made for you. We're going to teach you Excel, all of Excel, using real-life examples. From simple exercises to full-fledged business case studies. Take the online course and you'll be an Excel god in only 90 days. The course consists in more than 45 lessons and 15 case studies, all with their detailed solutions completely recorded in video, and you're going to be able to access them whenever you want, whatever you want. Best of all, you're going to have lifetime access to the course, and you're going to get any of the updates that we're constantly putting out for free. Even better, when you get our course, you'll have free access to our full Visual Basic and Macros course, and also to our Power BI course, all with just one single purchase. More than 3,000 students have passed through our classrooms. We've attended companies like Kodak, IBM, Cemex, HP, Continental, DB Schenker, and more. So, if you want to absolutely master Excel, make sure that you sign up now. You will become an Excel guy. A2 Excel.